Greetings and welcome to the ROI Clear podcast. My name is Ray Hightower, and today we are fortunate to have as our guest Ms. Amanda Larson. Amanda Larson is the founder of Amax Equity. She is a real estate investor. She is an engineer with experience in construction and oil and gas. She has traveled and lived internationally. She has a lot to tell us about what she's doing professionally. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Amanda Larson. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Ray. It's a joy and a pleasure to be on your podcast. So thank you for the invite, and I look forward to sharing my story with your listeners.
Yes, yeah, we look forward to hearing more about you too. And why don't we just jump right in? Sometimes with our guests, it's good for us to start off with an elevator pitch. And for those who are new to the ROI Clear podcast, imagine that Amanda Larson is on an elevator with someone she wants to influence. And Amanda, what would you say to that person in the course of an elevator ride?
Yeah, so really what I do is I fully believe that the only way to achieve financial independence is through generating multiple streams of income. And so what I do is I help busy professionals who want to earn hands-free income through real estate investing. I help them get started with that passive income, help them generate income through real estate, really without being a landlord. And it's completely hands-off, hands-free. It's very suitable and achievable for the busy professional.
Solid. And at that point, if I'm that person on that elevator, I want to know more and we trade cards or, oh, that's right. We don't do paper cards anymore. We
You
do hi,
don't,
hello.
right?
Yeah. We do the QR codes or whatever it is the cool kids are doing right now. So all of
That's
that
right. It
says,
gets
yeah.
cooler every day.
Yeah. Every day it does get cooler. So you have a fascinating background because you studied engineering, you've worked as
Yeah.
an engineer in construction and in oil and gas. Why
Mhm.
don't you take us back? Let's start at the beginning of your engineering career, or maybe talk to us about when you started off in engineering and when you were studying engineering, when you decided which discipline to go in, and
Yeah.
let's connect the dots. We're looking backwards. We're going to take a trip through your life
I,
history.
I love it, Ray.
Okay.
So this is the perfect place to start. So yeah, I got my undergrad in electrical engineering. And so I studied at the University of Nebraska, which is where I'm originally from, right?
Yes.
For those of you, you know, it's right in the middle of the US. There's not a lot there. There's corn and corn.
Corn and Warren Buffett.
That's right. That's right. And the College World Series. But yeah,
Yes.
so yeah. Um, so I did that, and through my studies, I also had the opportunity, or I made the opportunity to study abroad. And so I studied a year in Australia and fell in love with traveling and learning about new cultures. And so when I finished my degree, I moved back to Australia. At the time, I didn't have a job. I just went, uh, well, on a 6-month visa, really just with the desire to get a job. And
Yes.
so I made that happen. I got sponsorship and landed in a role that I never thought of as an electrical engineer. So they put me on a construction site in North Queensland, in the middle of nowhere. And I was working on, it was a port. And so it was a port that exported coal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was there in my boots and my hard hat and my fluorescent orange shirt. And yeah, that was my first job as an electrical engineer. It's exactly the opposite of what I had envisioned, but life takes you in different directions and you embrace the challenges and opportunities and go with it. So yeah, so I did that. Not to go on for too long, but I worked in construction as a site engineer for 4 to 5 years, somewhere in there. And then I moved into the design phase. And so, what happens before construction is you design it. So then went into that for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately what happened was they had a downturn in the market. So oil and gas, minerals, metals, um, and there was just a lot of layoffs. And so
Yes.
I was a product, and I don't want to use the word victim, but yeah, I was caught up in the layoffs and got a free flight home back to the US, so when your visa relies on your full-time work and there's no full-time work, then you get sent home.
There
So
you go.
yeah.
You know what? I'm glad you said that. You said you don't want to call yourself a victim, and I know you're not because your face lit up all while you were talking about that. Everything from getting your double E degree and
Hmm.
then being a site engineer on a port in North Queensland. And then,
Hmm.
their layoffs happen, the economy shifts and ebbs and flows, just like the
Yep.
waves of an ocean.
Yep.
And when the waves do what they do, when waves do what waves do, we can either complain about them or
Hmm.
we can break out our surfboard and ride those waves.
Yes.
And right. And
Hmm.
just from the way your face lit up when you were talking about that, yeah, there were some ups and downs and things like that. But I can see that you're one who rode those waves.
Hmm. Yeah. So the lesson really was that no matter how hard you plan or think you have things lined up, you, you really don't, there's some things you don't have control over. And one of
Mm,
those things is if you're working for someone else, you don't have control over your employment. You're on
sure.
a day-to-day, day-to-day trip. And so whilst it's hard and it doesn't get easier because I went through a few of those cycles, once you realize that and come to terms with that and then put in systems or put in other streams of income to back that up, it gets much easier. You can sleep at night. You can accept what happens because you have a safety net behind you. And
Mm,
so that is really, I mean, I don't, mission is a strong word, but I want to instill that into people. People feel safe with their job.
right.
And honestly, it happened to me, it's happened to my friends outside of oil and gas, it's happened to so many people, and your your control is limited. And so to have that safety net is so empowering that it's hard to describe. It's empowering, if you're unfortunate enough to go through that cycle, or just empowering that you don't feel like you have to give your soul to your employer, if you don't want to, because
Yes.
things change and maybe life situations change and you want to start spending more time with your family or take vacations. You have that empowerment to be able to make decisions for yourself. And that's why I do what I do.
Mm, empowerment.
Hmm.
I hear in the part of your story that you've shared so far, I hear empowerment, certainly
Hmm.
for yourself over your career. I also hear, like the traditional things they teach they teach us in engineering school is building redundant systems.
Hmm.
I hear financial engineering and I
Yeah.
hear career engineering.
Hmm. I've never heard it put that way, but you're exactly right. It's a redundant system. That speaks to every engineer out there.
Yes, yeah. So critical with everything that we study, with all those problem sets, all that we go through.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness, that's what we learn.
I'm gonna steal
So
that one, Ray.
you know what? You're welcome to steal it. I may have stolen it from somewhere. In fact, I think I stole it from a Dilbert cartoon or something like that, where Dilbert has, there's what is it? They were talking about a glass half full or a glass half empty. Is a
Yep.
glass half full or a glass half empty? Who knows? But a smart engineer will have a redundant glass. So,
Ah.
you don't so there it is. So yeah, that's where it comes from. So yeah, so you're not stealing from me, you're stealing from Scott Adams or whoever writes Gilbert. So there you
Yeah.
go. But yeah,
I'll give him credit.
yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So take us through, when did you decide to explore real estate as an investment
Mhm.
vehicle, or were there other investment vehicles you looked at before that? How did that
Yeah.
connect the dots there for us, if you
Yeah.
will?
So we'll go not back all the way, but I grew up in a family that always owned single family rentals, and they were landlords, full-time landlords. And so
Yes.
I grew up around that. So I saw the power of real estate, but I also saw how time consuming and challenging it could be. And so I
Mm.
had that dichotomy I was working with. And so I bought my first rental house in 2010 when I was living overseas. I bought it. It was the crisis in the US, and I was not, Australia was lucky they didn't go through, they weren't really impacted by that. And
Mm-hmm.
but I bought a foreclosure. My dad helped me buy it. It's in Lincoln, Nebraska. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a very generous father who helps manage it, and he fixes everything for me. He's a contractor. So that was almost my first passive investment.
Don't let your dad hear that it was passive. It wasn't passive for him.
Nope, not at all. It's still not.
Wow.
Yep. And then from there, I didn't have, big dreams of becoming a real estate investor, but then I read that crazy little purple book that
Ah.
seemed to ignite everyone. And that really just got me curious about other things and started dabbling in different types of real estate. There was, I went to, a lot of people end up at a seminar at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Free 3 day or a free seminar, and then it turns into a 3 day seminar, and then it turns into a bit more. But
Yes.
it opened my eyes to different ways of doing real estate that I wasn't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes into wholesaling and lease options and retail, a lot of different things. And they were all interesting, but they all seemed like another job. And to be
Mm.
honest, I liked my job.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. I was, progressing through the ranks, and I didn't really want another job. So what happened was I ended up at a meetup in Houston, where I'm based now.
Mm-hmm.
And there was somebody, I mean, they were syndicators, and so somebody was giving a presentation on how they buy apartments and they bring other investors in, and these investors get cash flow and appreciation. And it was like this light came on, and I hadn't been introduced to this idea before, and I remember I was just like, it was a game changer. I didn't look at any, forget the wholesaling, forget the fix and flips, forget everything. And I decided then, I was like, this is what I'm going to do.
Mm.
This is the vehicle where I can get all the benefits of real estate, but not have to manage any of it. And it was more like a business, which was appealing to me. It
Yes.
wasn't it was more sophisticated than a lot of the single family stuff going on to me. I know there's people who do single family at a large scale who are, killing it.
Sure.
But the size and the scale, it was more like instead of owning real estate, you're owning a business.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can hire full-time property management, you can get all the marketing done, you have full-time maintenance. And so that was just really appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that I never looked back. So I started investing passively and really enjoyed it. Like I found it really interesting. I started diving into financials and studying, different markets, and got me into macroeconomics, which I can geek
Mm.
out on all day.
Yes.
And so I just started growing that and growing that. And yeah, here I am. So after a few years, I did passive investing and then got into my first sponsorship, general partnership about almost 2 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be 2 years in September.
Yes.
So I've done a couple of deals, and now I'm just really focused on growing the business. So I do this full time. So yeah, so that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah. So working as an engineer, you enjoyed the intellectual challenge.
Yeah,
You
I-
enjoy you enjoy solving hard problems and
you put it
resonating.
exactly right. I am a problem solver. Give me
Yep.
a puzzle and I'll sit there and I won't, I'll be there until it's done.
Yes, yes, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Sometimes,
Doesn't matter.
you're skipping meals or whatever. You just
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
food needs
yeah.
sleep. Yeah, I'm gonna get this.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah. And in between there, it looks like somewhere in there, you also went and earned an MBA in there along the way, it looks like.
Yep. So I did my MBA in Madrid, Spain. So they have a global program. And so I started my MBA and it was, I'll go back, it was hybrid. So you spend some time in Madrid and then you spend some time, it was like Zoom courses. So you're there with it's live, but people are all over the world. So I think we had 30 countries represented in the
Hmm.
MBA. So a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures. It's an opportunity to learn how to work with all kinds of people living all over the world with different work systems and values and ways
Yes.
of communicating. So I started that in Australia, and I was just getting this about halfway through when I got laid off. So then I started in Australia and finished in the US.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. You were
yeah,
always able to bounce it back.
yeah.
How many languages do you speak?
English. That's it.
Really? And
Yeah.
so
So
oh, go ahead.
program was in English because
Yes.
with that many countries represented, it's the only common language between
It
everyone.
is the lingua franca.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the language of
Yeah.
money. So that says a lot about where we are. We have an advantage growing up in America, speaking it
Oh,
as our mother tongue.
huge.
Yeah, yeah, big advantage there. So that's wonderful. So you're able to, of course, Australia, you can navigate that in
Mm-hmm.
English. And then
There's the
Madrid.
crazy accent, but other than that, if you can nail
Yeah.
that, you're fine.
I'm gonna ask you in this, but I'm gonna ask you to say something in an Australian accent, so yeah. That's
I can't turn it on and off, but when I pick it up really fast. So when I
when you're
lived
there.
there, I am full Australian when I lived there. Um, and it's since dwindled, but now I'm working on the Texas twang.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. All right, now in Texas. Yes. Yep, yep. Wow.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your market for your acquisitions for your syndications right now? Are you focused on Texas? Are you looking at other parts of the country? What do you like?
So right now I'm focused on Dallas, Fort Worth, and
Hmm.
Houston, and a
Yes.
little bit of San Antonio. And really the reason for that is those are the most accessible for me.
Hmm.
So I spend a lot of time underwriting and touring and getting to know brokers.
Yes.
And so, for me, that's the most logistically feasible. I know I can fly in and out of anywhere, but to build those relationships and to be there, like boots on the ground, it's much harder the further it is away. So,
Sure.
yep. And why not? I mean, these are some of the best markets in the US, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, Texas is very attractive. No
mhm,
state income tax
mhm,
and all the industry that's there. It's remarkable, and
yeah,
especially those cities that you mentioned, DFW, San Antonio, Houston. The
mhm,
industry is just amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of things going for it. And whilst you can get to know a market from Google or visiting, it's completely different if you are really embedded there. So, like, just for example, Houston has no zoning, so it's like the Wild West. You can build anything anywhere. You can turn a house into a club. You can do anything you want. So
Mm,
that has its positives because it's, freedom, but also anything can go anywhere. So you cannot look at a Google map and say that this neighborhood is kind of like this, or if I just go west, the demographics or in the median household income is favorable. Like
right.
you have to go there, see it, see what's next door, see what's across the street, because you are in wildly different worlds
Yeah.
from block to block. And if you're
Yes.
not here, you don't know that.
Right. Right. Yes. So you notice that, that's a particular idiosyncrasy of that market, and you
Mm-hmm.
use that information to your advantage.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't complain about it. There it is again. There's you facing a wave, and rather than complaining about it, you're riding it. You're figuring out how to leverage it
Mhm.
and benefit from it.
Yeah. Because you see, I mean, you do see out of state investors think that they can invest in Houston, thinking that, they give it a 1 mile radius and the median household income is, call it 80,000. Well, it is 2 blocks over, but where you where you are, it's more like 35. And
Yeah,
unless you're here, you don't know that.
right. You must have boots on the ground. Must
Yeah.
have boots on the ground. Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Are you focused primarily on multifamily, or are you looking at other asset classes?
Right now it's multifamily. There's things I'd like to learn about. I would like to learn a little bit more about oil and gas, but
Mm-hmm.
that's on the back burner right now. So right now it is multifamily. And I think especially if you are an operator, to have focus. I see some operators jump around, and whilst they might be successful, the ones that I would invest with are more focused on what they do, and they do their one thing and they do it well. Because
Okay. Now, are you looking for focus in terms of geography or in terms of specialization? Like asset management versus capital raising versus acquisitions. What are you
I
looking
was
for?
thinking more in terms of if it's the operator, like the one that's managing the asset and managing the property manager, I would want them to be focused on their one thing. Now,
Mm,
if if you're raising capital, and which I'm leaning into more right now, I think then it's easier to be a little bit more diversified,
hmm.
and raise capital for different types of projects. But when it comes down to the operations, my personal opinion is do your thing and do it well.
Okay. Yes. There it
Hmm.
is. There it is. Don't try to master all disciplines of engineering, be an electrical engineer or mechanical
Yeah.
or civil. Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Focus in
And
that area.
even when it comes down to if you're bringing investors in, your investors need to trust you with their capital. And
Mm,
so that takes some homework to get educated enough to know that if it's a good investment for your investors or not, like learning the underwriting, learning the market. And that's what that's what you're there for. That's what you are doing. You are doing that for your investors so they don't have to. And so
right.
that takes effort and time.
Yes. What are some things that you do to win the trust of investors?
It's For me, it's all about just building reports, relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and caring. I take it so seriously. It's taking that check from an investor is a lot of pressure. As you know, Ray,
Yes, yes, it is.
it's more than putting your own money into the deal. Um,
Indeed, it is.
and having that relationship, you need to be able to feel strongly that, things will I always things won't go as planned. That's the given. Things won't go as planned, but they'll either go slightly better, slightly worse, but you need to be able to manage how things go. And you're giving me that look. So what I mean by that is,
No,
you
I'm
do
just
your,
listening. Yeah, but go
yeah,
ahead.
you do
Yeah.
your, because I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but you, when you're putting out your business plan, it's 5, 7 years, pick a
Mm-hmm.
number.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're working with, you're working with macroeconomics, you're working with people, you're working with the economy. It's, we can't see the future a lot better than anyone else. So we
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, we get the data, we make our best, most conservative assumptions, how it's going to play out.
Right.
But usually there's things that happen that don't allow it to play out just as we had intended. But what we need to do is manage through those challenges and opportunities to take care of our investors' money.
Right. Right. When you're doing that, how are you evaluating risk? How are you measuring risk?
When we're putting together our plan,
Yeah.
like a 5-year. So managing risk is having, like you said, like redundancy in place, and
Mhm.
then using the data to the best of our not like to the best of our ability, like looking at projections and population growth, and then also just being realistic. Like we
Mhm.
know that based on this where the property is located, we know the median household income. So
Mhm.
we can't push rent or we can't increase rent any more than, maybe $100 a unit or whatever it may be. We can also look at properties in the like immediate vicinity, what they're getting. So what I see when people are not managing risk, they just take a broker's pro forma and, put some granite and paint it gray and you can
Yeah.
increase rents $250, you know.
Uh,
And so it's really just digging in and verifying your business plan. And
yep.
maybe hopefully or ideally the previous owner has tested out your business plan. They've done some of the remodels and gotten those rent increases.
Yes. Yep.
Another part is digging into the financials. If the property is seeing a lot of delinquency, meaning their residents are having a hard time paying rent, there's a reason for that. And it's either management or it's just to the situation, and that be challenging to tenant to change that. Um,
Mhm.
so it's pulling back the layers and getting as specific as you can, and then giving enough leeway so when things get harder, you can absorb those challenges.
Yes. You're creating buffers.
Yeah, yeah.
You're creating buffers. Yeah.
If your
Powerful.
business plan relies on everyone paying pet rent or something like that. I'm just giving out
Yeah.
examples, but if it relies on that $20 a month, then it's too tight. Like
Yeah.
you need some leeway in there.
Solid. Solid. This is going really quickly. We're coming towards the end of our time together and it's going quickly. I
Already?
could ask you a whole lot more questions. This is it's fast. Um as we wrap up, I want to ask you, are there things you would like to say to our audience of entrepreneurs and business leaders that I haven't asked you about so far? I've asked you about your time in Australia, then you told us about Madrid and the
Hmm.
engineering degree, the MBA, what you're doing in real estate, how that all ties together. And now we're talking about trust and building in a buffer so that your
Yeah.
business plan can't just rely on $20 a month in pet rent because you don't know. You never know if
Yeah.
you're going to get
Yeah.
that or not, right? Yeah, so we've gone all over the place, but all with one common goal, and that is to learn more about you as a business leader, an engineering leader, as an entrepreneur, and all of that. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you would like to share with our group of business leaders and entrepreneurs, our audience?
No, I don't think so, Ray. I think it's more just really hitting home and just driving home that idea of redundancy. I'm going to steal
Mm,
it. Redundancy in your income, because it's empowering, and it's the only way I believe free to financial independence, and also from here and between financial independence, it gives you that ability to pivot and make decisions in your life.
mm. Financial independence gives you that ability to pivot and make decisions, make better decisions in your life.
Hmm.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow. That's wonderful. That's a powerful way to close out. Wow. How can people get in touch with Amanda Larson?
Yeah, so you can visit my website. It's amaxequity.com. I'm also active on LinkedIn. You can feel free to connect, follow, DM me. I do a little bit of Twitter X, not as active, and then Facebook as well. But I would say email, you can send me, you can get my email off my website. It's amanda@amaxequity.com, or LinkedIn are really the two best ways.
Wonderful. And we'll make sure we include links to those in the show
Yeah.
notes. Yes.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Amanda Larson, it has been a pleasure speaking with you here on the ROI Clear podcast. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you so much, Ray. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully your listeners get some value out of it. And it's always, it's always good to chat.
Excellent. And thank you for engaging the ROI Clear podcast. At ROI Clear, we buy multifamily apartment properties, we improve them, and we give people a great place to live. At the same time, we give investors an opportunity to enjoy capital preservation, tax advantages, and a solid return on investment. If you'd like to know more, click the link to roiclear.com down below. We look forward to speaking with you.